Time to see EIGRP authentication in action, or not in action if we do it incorrectly. I'm sure we'll do it correctly. Nothing tricky here at all. A couple of long-winded commands at the interface level, and I'm going to throw in some debugging here as well. Now, I believe in the video before this I mentioned that was the end of the EIGRP section. What happened was I was doing this in the security section, and I would rather put it with the EIGRP video since it is EIGRP authentication. So let's jump right in. Actually, I started a little bit without you here because we do have an adjacency between routers 2 and 3 over the 172.12.23.0/24 network. Everything from every previous video period was removed. I did a write erase on everybody, brought them back up, and just put this adjacency in place. And now I'm going to go ahead and show you the keychain command and a couple of options as we go along, because the first thing I want to show you is that keychain, even though you'll see it hyphenated many times, the command is not actually hyphenated. It is keychain when you start writing your keychain. And notice that when you use iOS help hyphenates keychain, and you'll see it that way in a lot of books and a lot of documentation. It's really easy to type key-chain or key-chain, however you want to put it. If you get unrecognized command, don't panic. Just look for the caret, because I guarantee you it's going to be pointing to where you put that unnecessary hyphen. So we've got keychain CCNP, a boring name, but let's stick with that. And a key identifier, and as you can see, the key identifiers can go from 0 to a number much greater than 0. I'm going to stick with key 1 right here, and then you'll notice the config mode changes to config keychain key. And this is where you're actually putting the password. The keychain, you are going to refer to that when you are applying this to an interface. And what we're going to do is authenticate. It's two-way authentication between routers 2 and 3 over their EIGRP adjacency. And we just want to make sure, that we don't have any rogues that snuck in there, any bad guys that are part of that adjacency. We want to make sure that everything is above board. And what I'm going to do next is set a key string. But the two options I wanted to show you here that are a little bit beyond the scope of the NP route, but I want you to know about them, is accept lifetime and send lifetime. Now, by default, when we create this key and I put a key string of CISCO in, that is a forever password. There are no limitations to it. It's going to be the EIGRP authentication key until we take it off. But you may want to set things up so, okay, this key will be used until next Wednesday at 8 o'clock. And you can set an accept lifetime of that. Let's go ahead and dive into that. I'd rather show it to you than talk about it. And you'll notice time to start. And you can even create a key that isn't even going to be effective now. You could just say, okay, here's the time I want it to start, and then it's going to tell you, what time do you want it to finish. You can do that with the accept lifetime of the key and the send lifetime of the key. So we're not going to get into that here. I want to stick to the fundamentals of EIGRP authentication, but those are two options that it's a good idea just so you know a little something about. Now, let's set our actual password, and we do that with key string, which you'll notice is hyphenated in the command and isn't hyphenated in the description. I think they're just messing with us by now. Let's see, key string, and I'm going to go with CISCO right there. And really, that's it. I'm ready to now apply this on the interfaces, because we're not going to go in the EIGRP config and apply it. We're actually going to go to the interface level. So since this is over the fast Ethernet, by golly, that would be a good place to put it. Let me move that arrow. We've got IP authentication is how it starts, and keychain and mode. And you actually need to set both of these. Got to set the mode, got to set the keychain. Let's take a look at this mode option. And EIGRP is kind of an egomaniac. You got to mention EIGRP in here. I like the way iOS tells you EIGRP is Enhanced Interior Gateway Routing Protocol, EIGRP in paren. Just notice that. And I bet we have to put the AS number in. You know that we do. And the AS is 100 for the adjacency. And MD5 is our only option, so that's a good choice. And that's it. So one command down. But we haven't done anything with the keychain, and yet look what happened. Our adjacency is already down. I don't even have to show you the whole thing because we can see the ugly part here on the screen. And it even tells you, hey, authentication mode changed. Well, of course, because on R3 we're not running any authentication. We don't have the worry of doing encrypted on one end and unencrypted on the other, because as you see, there is no clear text option here with the EIGRP authentication. But now we need to get that keychain applied. It's not enough to set the mode. So we're going to do authentication again, then keychain, -n, and enhanced interior gateway routing protocol, EIGRP, that's the one we want, and the AS number, and then finally the name of the key chain. Watch that, especially if this is new to you. You're never actually going to put a password in here. You're putting the key chain. And again, just remember, you know, when you have a key chain of one key, it doesn't look like much of a chain. But we could have set 6 different keys in there and you know, have them staggered so that, you know, one day one key is good, the next day the next key is good, etc. So you do have a key chain even if you just have one key. And right now we got to put CCNP here because that was the actual name of the key chain. And I don't think we're going to get any other messages because our authentication, our adjacency was already down. But let's take a look at debug EIGRP packets here. Let's say that we did not see that console message about the dual neighbor change. This one's going to be pretty obvious because again, you see the ugly part right here on the screen. I'll go ahead and do a UAll right there for undebug all. You can see it right at the top and right at the bottom if you want. We ignored a packet from 172.12.23.3. There it is. We know that's router 3. And at the very end, why did we ignore it? Missing authentication. So it would be a good idea for us to go over to router 3 and apply this same config. One is CISCO, and we're going to drop down to 0/0 IP authentication mode, EIGRP 100 MD5. It's your only choice, and IP authentication key chain, EIGRP 100 CCNP. Let's see how fast our adjacency comes back up, we hope. Ta-da! And there it is, 23.2. is up, new adjacency. Let's go over to router. Well, actually, we could run that on 3. Forgot we did turn it off. We're good network admins. We turned that debug off. Let's run a debug EIGRP packet. Let's see if there is a mention of authentication. And there it is. I'll go ahead and do a UAll right there. You can see at the very first line, EIGRP received packet with MD5 authentication, key ID equals 1. And that's all you're going to see in the debug because, again, we don't really want the password mentioned in this output. But that is EIGRP authentication in a nutshell. Now let's head to the next section of the course.